The night sky above the remote forest was alive with stars, their twinkling brilliance undiminished by city lights. I had always found solace here, far from the chaos of the world, but tonight the serenity was broken. The crash had shaken the earth, its impact sending tremors through the trees and leaving a faint trail of smoke curling into the air. My curiosity got the better of me. Grabbing a flashlight, I ventured into the woods, my boots crunching against the underbrush. When I reached the site, I froze. In the clearing was something I couldn't have imagined, not even in my wildest dreams. A sleek, metallic craft lay nestled in the dirt, its surface gleaming under the moonlight. It was otherworldly, its design fluid and organic, as though it were a living thing. But that wasn't what held my attention. Standing before the wreckage was a figure, a girl, but not human. Her skin glowed faintly, a soft lavender hue that seemed to pulse in time with the light from her large, luminous violet eyes. Her long, silvery hair floated around her as if caught in an invisible current. She was beautiful, but there was an undeniable power about her that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. She turned her gaze to me, and I felt as though the world itself had paused. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice soft yet carrying an edge of authority. I took a hesitant step back. "Who are you? What is this?" She tilted her head slightly, studying me as though I were the anomaly. "You're the one they spoke of," she said, more to herself than to me. "The one who belongs to me." I blinked, sure I had misheard. "Excuse me." Her eyes narrowed, and she stepped closer. "You don't understand, human. You belong to me." Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke, a mixture of frustration and something deeper, something almost like fear. I shook my head, taking another step back. "I don't belong to anyone." Her gaze softened, but the intensity didn't fade. "You do. Not in the way you think, but it's true. You're connected to me. You always have been." I didn't know what to say. My heart was pounding in my chest, and my mind raced to make sense of her words. She took another step forward, her movements graceful and deliberate. "You were chosen," she continued. "Long before you were born. My people and yours, there was a pact. An agreement that would ensure the survival of both our species. You are the fulfillment of that pact." Her words hung heavy in the air. I wanted to laugh, to dismiss her as insane, but the sincerity in her eyes stopped me. "This is crazy," I managed to say. "Why would I be chosen? I'm just me." She sighed, her expression softening. "I didn't expect you to understand. Not yet. But the bond between us is real. It's why I came here, why I crashed. I had to find you." Before I could respond, a sharp noise cut through the air, a mechanical hum, growing louder by the second. Her expression darkened, and she turned toward the sound. "They found me," she said, her voice low. "We have to go. Now." "Who's they?" I asked, panic rising. "The ones who want to take you from me." She grabbed my arm, her touch surprisingly warm. "Run." The next few hours were a blur of running, hiding, and near misses. The forest, once my refuge, had become a maze of shadows and danger. Our pursuers weren't human, at least, not entirely. Their metallic bodies glinted in the moonlight, their movements unnervingly precise. Drones, I realized, controlled by something far more sinister. Despite her otherworldly appearance, the girl, who finally told me her name was Caliph, was not invincible. She moved with a warrior's grace, taking down drones with blasts of energy from her hands, but I could see the strain it was putting on her. By the time we reached a hidden cave deep in the woods, she was visibly exhausted. "You need to explain," I said once we were safely inside. "All of this, it doesn't make sense." Caliph leaned against the cave wall, her glowing eyes dimming slightly. "Your ancestors and mine forged an alliance centuries ago. My people were dying, our resources depleted, our world collapsing. Earth was a beacon of hope. The pact was simple. One of our kind would bond with one of yours, creating a connection that would ensure the survival of both species. You are that connection, the one chosen to fulfill the pact. I shook my head. That sounds like something out of a science fiction movie. She gave a faint smile. And yet, here you are, talking to an alien in a cave. She had a point. What happens now? I asked. Her expression grew serious. Now, we survive. Those drones were sent by a faction that opposes the pact. They want to eliminate you to sever the bond and ensure their dominance. If they succeed, both our worlds will suffer. The weight of her words settled over me like a heavy cloak. I was no hero, no warrior. I was just a guy who liked the quiet life. But now, it seemed, the fate of two worlds rested on my shoulders. The days that followed were a crash course in survival. Kalith taught me how to move silently, how to sense danger, and even how to defend myself using makeshift weapons. Despite her intensity, there was a gentleness to her that began to surface. She laughed at my clumsy attempts to mimic her movements and smiled when I managed to succeed. Slowly, I began to see her not just as an alien but as someone who was just as scared and uncertain as I was. Our bond, the one she spoke of, began to feel real. I couldn't explain it, but I started to sense her emotions, her pain and determination, as if they were my own. It was strange, but it gave me strength. She wasn't fighting for herself. She was fighting for me, for us. The final confrontation came sooner than I expected. The drones found us, their relentless pursuit driving us to the edge of a cliff overlooking a roaring river. Kalith stood in front of me, her energy dim but her resolve unwavering. "Stay behind me," she said, her voice firm. "No," I replied, stepping forward. "We do this together." She glanced at me, surprise flickering in her eyes, but she didn't argue. Together, we faced the onslaught. She unleashed blasts of energy while I fought with whatever I could find, rocks, branches, anything to slow them down. It wasn't enough. The drones kept coming, their numbers overwhelming. As one of them lunged for me, Kalith threw herself in its path, taking the hit. She cried out, her glow dimming further as she fell to her knees. Rage and fear surged through me, and without thinking, I grabbed a piece of the fallen drone and drove it into the nearest attacker. To my shock, it worked. Kalith looked up at me, her eyes wide. "The bond, it's awakening. What does that mean?" I asked, barely able to catch my breath. "It means we're stronger together than they could ever imagine." With her guidance, I felt a surge of energy, as though her strength had become my own. Together, we fought back, driving the drones into retreat. When the last one fell, we stood side by side, battered but victorious. In the aftermath, as we sat by the river catching our breath, Kalith turned to me. "You're not just a human, and I'm not just an alien. Together, we're something more." I nodded, finally understanding. "And that's why we belong to each other." She smiled, a rare and genuine expression that made her eyes shine brighter. "Yes. And together, we'll protect what matters."